Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to OnFest 2013, and we're finally back with Bulgaria's finest Kalu is OP, but we had a long break because we had to transition from the tournament realm all the way to EU West servers, and it's caused quite a lot of issues. So I'm Pulse, I'm joined by Spellington once again, and we will finally see the conclusion to this best of three.
Yeah, that's a very good thing, and I will say though, the transition to the EU West servers has caused us now to need to be casting from the stream. There are only 2 spectator slots in the custom lobbies on the EUS server. As it is now, we have a bit of an issue because obviously not only we are streaming this, but also AFK TV is streaming this, and I believe they have somebody else who is in the spec slots in the tournament client, which wasn't a problem then. But now we are outside, so we are spectating from the stream. Our voices will go we'll see what's coming out of the stream, and then we will send that back on a loop back around to the stream. So, Pulse, we have some bans.
Yeah, a bottom line that for you will be delayed, and we will not be synchronized with the stream. So, you'll be hearing us, and it won't be anything to do with what's on screen. So, I was going for the picks, but I have just... there's an advert.
Oh dear. So the bans thus far, there have been no picks. We've got Elise, Vi, Shen, Corky, Evelyn, and Zed. And Pulse, if I had to guess, nothing really standing out to you there?
No, very, very similar. Like, Elise, Vi, Evelyn were definitely banned out last game. I believe Zed was also there along with Corky. Shen maybe wasn't banned out, but at least 5 of those 6 bans are the same. So, out of the bans, there's very little to really talk about. And apparently Renekton was there.
Well, he has been first picked now for Zeka there, so we'll be able to see if that works out for them. Certainly a very reliable top laner in the form of Renekton. He is kind of pretty nasty, actually, in almost all situations, and just, yes, he falls off a little bit late game, but for such a reliable laner, he's really, really good.
Yeah, and he has very few bad matchups as well. Like, we see Kennen is maybe one of the matchups he's slightly less good against, but it then comes down to like a skill matchup. So there's no matchups in the game that he would be pushed out, he would lose by default. There's always counterplay for Renekton, and the fact that Trinity Force is so good, he can choose to go for like a Brutalizer, which was very standard for Renekton before, or he can just go for something like a Phage, build into a Trinity Force, and then go straight tank. There's more options to him to build damage into his item build now.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Renekton, very much a character where he gets enough damage to be a relevant threat just from his kit. Like, literally can build pure tank and still be a threat. Does tend to at least need a Sunfire Cape, though. That's what we see a lot of. But if you do build him pure tank and you get ahead on XP, you actually don't necessarily need to be as big of a threat or rather, you become a bigger threat simply by virtue of getting extra levels. So if you are ahead, building pure tank can make you this unstoppable machine. Regardless though, Zyra, Caitlyn, and the Lee Sin Ahri picks, nothing too surprising there, but we have got a Shyvana lock-in with an Orianna.
Yeah, Shyvana is, well, another ball carrier, the same way that the Zac attack ball carry is super strong. Orianna will do the same thing with Shyvana. She'll jump in with Dragon Descent, Shockwave comes in, locks everyone up, and you'll have that 2 kind of wombo combo with displacement, and you can follow with the damage. Should be enough time for Zyra to land a great Stranglehold as well. Caitlyn, no one can touch her. Looking for the last pickup, it will probably be that top lane. I would kind of like to see another AoE top laner and just have like all the AoE in the world. I feel that would work very well against a composition that at least we see Kalu OP are building at the moment. I could see that being pretty strong, but that is reliant on Renekton and Lee Sin not getting tanky enough so they can just withstand the entire burst combo.
It's going to be interesting to see what they go for here. They've actually got a number of options. And for me, actually, in this case, I would actually think a Singed wouldn't be a bad choice. Now, yes, he's not the best ball carrier in the world, but I believe he can lane fairly decently against Renekton, and he can prevent, the longer the game goes on, that situation where you have that wombo combo, but it's not really enough to get anything done. I'd actually be very interested, though, if they did lock in that Irelia. With the new Phage changes, it's worth noting she is a lot stronger than she was previous to the Trinity Force alterations.
Yeah, she has an absurd amount of counterplay. Like, I mean absurd. I think a story you were telling me, Spuddington, was you laned like Tryndamere against Irelia, and Irelia was able to catch up through Tryndamere's spinning slash, which is just like, what? Because spinning slash as Tryndamere is supposed to be your complete counter-initiate ability at top lane. No one can follow you after, and when you're done auto-attacking them, you're out. But the fact that Irelia can keep following you is so scary. Plus, there's lots of interesting things she can do, like chain in the extra movement speed from Phage into her like Blade Surge. But anyway, we're going to go to a quick break, and when we get back, we'll be in game with Kalu's OP and Bulgaria's finest. We'll see you soon. Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to OnFest 2013, Kalu OP and Bulgaria's finest. Now into the game, hot into the action. I say into the action, but we're in a pause, and we've been in a pause for about 4 minutes. So we should be getting into the action very shortly, but there are some problems with the tournament computers. So when that is all done, then we'll be back into the game. But I'm Pulse, and I'm joined by Spuddington. Spuddington, how's it going?
At a LAN event. I mean, really,
Unheard
when
of,
could
right?
that have happened? Yeah, I've never experienced any such thing before, Pulse. But we do have a little bit of time to sort of discuss the general way we're expecting this game to go. And I think the first thing I'd personally like to focus on is what is going to happen in this top lane right now. Pulse, I don't think you know too much about top lane matchups. You know, don't quote me if I'm wrong, but...
Not as much as I would jungle and AD carry in like bot lane.
Because traditionally, I've always thought of Renekton as being a counter to Irelia. That I don't see how the phase changes would have changed that particularly, because it was always that Irelia was trying to avoid directly going for Renekton rather than being a matter of trying to chase down. So the fact that they picked Irelia into that matchup deliberately is kind of throwing me off a little bit. Like, I'm not sure why they are doing that. Unless they know something I don't about that matchup.
Well, the typical counterplay always with Irelia in bad matchups is she'd just sit at a turret and farm underneath turret. She's very, very good at CSing under turret. It's worth noting. It's kind of the same way that Riven is also amazing at CSing under turret when you get used to how much damage her skills do. Irelia versus Renekton. Renekton is of course a lane bully. Irelia doesn't have very many good matchups in the first couple levels because she doesn't vamp up in damage until she gets some levels into hit and style. So in terms of straight up trades, Irelia won't win against Renekton. And we're forced to think about how much counterplay there is with Irelia into Renekton. Renekton has essentially two gap closers. He has a stun, and he has pretty good sustain. Irelia also has pretty much the same. Can she play around Call the Meek? Probably not. I don't know.
It's very hard. It's it's not a matchup I've played myself since probably early season 3. But the way it tended to work when I saw that matchup was that you would just have Renekton going in with a slice and dice, getting the Ruthless Predator, and Irelia would not be able to trade damage for a very, very long time. And in that time, Renekton would have more than enough ability to bully her around and take control of the lane, get a CS advantage, and just keep himself ahead. And if in peril, he could always pop that Dominus, which tended to make a sustained trade for him even later on a much more viable option. Maybe, Irelia has a little bit more late game in terms of diving the AD carry, but it always did strike me as being an advantage lane to Renekton.
Yeah, and if the team from Bulgaria's finest, if they had a jungler who's very aggressive, like a very aggressive ganking jungler, like Rammus or like Lee Sin, I'd say, okay, well, I can see that matchup may be working because Irelia is a very nice gank lane. She can output a lot of damage. She's got a stun or a slow, depending on how Equilibrium Strike is relative to your opponent. And that's really good. But they have Shyvana. And maybe she can get the level 3 gank off with like the red buff and blue buff, but if Lee Sin goes for the counter gank, which I'm pretty sure he probably will, there's no way that Irelia should necessarily, purely by skill and the matchup, win.
Yeah, but we are now unpausing, so we can sort of just see how that transpires. It's one of those things where I just don't know enough, because I haven't seen the matchup recently. But my instinct tells me it may have been a mistake. Bulgaria's finest, though, are a very solid team, and I do believe, yes, they are the ones, indeed, yes. So, it'll be interesting to see how it works out, but regardless now, both teams potentially going to find each other here. The Grasping Roots, charm misses, doesn't look like anything's going to happen.
Yeah, at least they knew they were in the jungle, and it's kind of, now it's down to like, okay, where do they ward if they warded? And it would be interesting to see if Zyra puts down the pink ward because they didn't ward at all. Mind games, there we go, pink ward comes out and it hasn't even been warded.
Whoa, that's not
Outplayed.
clever at all. But what if we hadn't? You can't reliably expect them to de-ward it necessarily, because it's not like even having that control is that when you're against Shyvana jungle, can control, having that vision isn't as important, because if she's... Am I?
I think it's the server, because the ping is going everywhere. We might need to change servers, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Carry on, Pulse.
Okay, well, I'll take over for the meantime. Swiddington, check a different server to see if you have any ping issues, and we will get right back into it. But, Shyvana starting onto the red buff, and we'll be going to the blue buff. Okay, interesting, because we were talking a lot about seeing if Shyvana would go for the level 3 gank onto top lane, try and equalize that lane. But that's not on the cards. She's going into the blue buff, so she'll go either to bottom or mid. Mid probably isn't the best of a gank lane, honestly, like Orianna versus Ahri. Bot lane could work if she loops all the way around, but Lee Sin has gone blue into red, so they might meet each other down at bot lane.
Okay, I'm hoping you can hear me correctly now, right?
It seems okay.
Right. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Wasn't actually listening to what you were saying there, Pulse, because I was far too occupied with my own problems. So forgive me if I end up repeating myself, or yourself, actually.
Yeah, it was just jungler things, essentially. I was talking about jungle routes, and okay, so Kavara is going to go back into the top jungle and maybe again look for the top gank. I was querying Spuddington why he was going blue into red, instead of red into blue, sorry, instead of going blue into red and looking for the gank immediately with level 3, but go for a more sustained route, it looks like.
It may have simply been that going for that standard gank at top lane is a very predictable move, and if you choose to do that, Renekton is going to outtrade Aurelia one-on-one and is better in that 2-on-2 with more AoE in his kit. So it's a kind of a risky maneuver to go for on that front. As it happens though, that sustained clear will get Shyvana up in levels fairly quickly, but now she's got that problem that Shyvana tends to run into, where unless a lane is really pushed up, she just doesn't have a gank path.
She doesn't have a gank path, and she really thrives in team compositions where you push as hard as you can, and she can sit in their jungle, because at any point in time, they can always react to Shyvana's invade, but that's not really on the cards for them, and Lee Sin is now counter-jungling Shyvana, which is not the greatest position to be in, so she's not got any ganks off, she can't counter-jungle Lee Sin, and in fact Lee Sin's counter-jungling her, so how long has red buff got? It's probably got one gank's worth potential in it. She needs to get a gank off, and I'm still surprised she's not going for the top gank.
Well, it does seem like Aurelia was actually able to slightly do, a decent trade there against Renekton. It might be that the Doran shield change is really helping her out. Because remember, true damage not going to be affected by that passive, but the multiple hits from Ruthless Predator will all have their damage reduced. So that might actually be one of the factors in this early game. Shyvana is there now, though. Doesn't have a red buff, though. If he doesn't commit Ruthless Slice and Dice, it's going to be a problem for Renekton here. No, it's going to be a problem if he doesn't commit.
Yeah, I think I know what you said there. Lee Sin heading up into the top lane, potentially looking for that lane gank. Shyvana's backing on off, and probably going for her golems. I don't like the timing on Shyvana's jungle route, honestly. It seemed very haphazard, and as a result, Lee Sin might get this gank off onto Shadino in the top lane. I think some of these names have changed since the last game because they had different names on the tournament realm, which is even more confusing. And Zaka still in the top lane. He is looking to kind of connect the dots. If he can get this gank off onto Irene, it could be devastating, but both of these junglers committing a lot of time to not very much.
Well, it seems like it's a lane that could swing very heavily off a single gank. Because if a Renekton is able to outduel Aurelia, yes, that's very nice. If he is left unable to, he kind of loses out a lot of his potential in the game. So, I can understand putting this much focus on it, but neither of them really getting anything done, which is the problem with that particular thing. Although committing more and more time does mean the probability of getting your gank off successfully increases, it's not ideal from this perspective. However, it does now mean that they are both free to go back if they want to in this top lane. Renekton has done so, certainly. And now, will they choose to continue focusing that top lane?
It hasn't worked out so far, and now as they're edging towards level 6, the chances of getting a successful gank drop significantly, especially with Dominus. And also Transcendent Blade is very, very good in either tower dive scenarios or even in lane. It's just the extra bit of HP from both of these top laners just make them even harder to gank. Specifically Shyvana, maybe Lee Sin can do it with an insect or something, but he's level 4 because Alary's up committing so much time. They're in good shape. Shyvana at least has been farming in jungle in the downtime, meaning she'll hit level 6 faster, and then you can of course have the classic shockwave into the Dragon's Descent. So in terms of mid game, they'll be in good shape. Lee Sin, I think, has hurt himself more from committing the time, and he's looking for the gank down at bot lane. Still 0-0-0. Nothing currently on the scoreline. Has 900, nearly 1,000 gold, so that is enough for a sight stone if he wants to go for it. Kalu, this is not getting anything done. He's looping around the side though. This could be the start of something good.
Could step on a seed.
Well, no, okay. But he's still going to look for the gank though. Connects the Q onto Cillium. And actually goes for it. Resonating Strike comes through. Tempest Cripple. Auto attacks come out. And he backs on off.
That will actually give them a little bit of an opportunity to regain some control in this lane. That damage on Lee Sin, he can go back and heal up. Cillium can't do that without risking something here. And Ezreal and Sona were kind of getting pushed back into what I like to call the Caitlyn trap, where they were constantly pushed against their tower, and that meant they were having trouble sustaining because the tower was taking so much health away they couldn't lifesteal as effectively. Constantly pushed up, constantly in that unfortunate situation. Renekton actually seems to be losing out at the moment in top lane, by the way, or maybe not. I don't know. Regardless, though, that has given them the opportunity in bot lane to recall.
Yeah, Shyvana picks up the blue buff, counter jungles Lee Sin. Now he's realised that his players to go to their blue. It's interesting, Inksy has his ultimate, but Shockwave is up as well as Dragon Descent. In fact, Shyvana's 2 levels ahead of Lee Sin. So if they go into a head-on-head, toe-to-toe fight, then they'll get dropped in an instant. And Zyra is coming up, and Shyvana's coming there as well. Checking the brushes, they will be taking blue buff away from them, but now is Kalu. He's kind of in an awkward spot. Grasping Boots doesn't quite connect. And they will back on off. So, good steal from Kalu.
And that means neither of the AP mids have got their blue buff. Probably going to hurt the Ahri a little bit more. Given that Orianna now has 2 Dorans and a Chalice, she's almost not going to feel the lack of mana regen from the blue buff. Yes, if she spams a lot, she will run out. But she's certainly got a lot more mana sustain, and she's already on a much higher mana pool because Ahri committed mana trying to get that blue buff down very, very quickly, only for Lee Sin to accidentally take it away, which is a slight issue, I think, for them.
Yeah, it's more typical for an Orianna to go for Chalice and go into the Athenes and Holy Grail, whereas Ahri very much likes to go for an early Death by Grasp or something like an Abyssal Scepter or something along those lines if it's situational, but not usually the build you're expecting from an Ahri. So as you said, it will hurt that Ahri a lot more, but it should be generally okay. I mean, we haven't had a very explosive mid lane, and these two seem to be much happier to kind of farm it out anyway. And either way, in the bot lane, Lee Sin looking for the gank onto the tower. This could get messy. I mean, with the Stranglethorns, that's such a good counter initiate and something to lock them up underneath the tower. He comes in from behind though, insects Cillian backward, jukes out Crescendo, Stranglethorns comes down, locks up Endroa, but Lee Sin is still under tower. First blood picked up, and he backs on off. First blood to Lee Sin, finally gets it on off.
Yeah, that red buff ticking down just a tiny bit. Very nicely played by Lee. Renekton also forced Irelia out in this top lane. Just kind of pushed her up to a tower and shoved away. He could go back and pick up the components to his own Sunfire Cape. Does not yet have the gold for the full cape, however. Irelia got the components themselves, so they're going to be very even in that lane. I'm actually interested to know if Irelia is going to be able to fight him once she's got that Sunfire Cape herself. It's just one of these... I'm just curious, because I might go back to playing Irelia, you know.
Yeah, I feel in a sustained engagement, because the lane is completely even, and when she hits level 9, she'll have maximum points into hit and style. So I definitely feel that Irelia will come out ahead in the trade. I mean, that's my personal feelings, even with Dominus, but if they both have those Sunfire Capes, I feel in a sustained engagement, the extra damage, the true damage from her hit and style, will be more than the overtime damage from Dominus. We'll see. I mean, the stuns can also come into it, but personally, I feel Irelia will come out ahead. Shyvana in the mid lane, again, looking for that gank to happen. It could be very nasty, in fact, like a Dragon Descent into Shock Blast in the mid lane, or Shockwave I should say, onto Inksy, very difficult to get away from. The displacement for at least 2 seconds means that she won't be able to use Spirit Rush, and if they chain it correctly, they should be able to nuke her down before she can escape.
You know what that combo is called? The
What?
Ball's Descent. However, Lee Sin is in the mid lane.
He's looking for the gank, but now the dragon does come from the backside. Burnout is there. Shockwave comes in, lands onto Kalu. Doesn't do enough damage, or the damage that they really wanted. Q will miss from Lee Sin, and he backs on off with Safeguard. So not as explosive as we were expecting.
No, cancelling each other out, something that seems to be becoming a theme in our casts. However, we do have Aurelia trading off once again with Renekton, has not got that hit end style available, and as soon as she does, she'll probably back away, or perhaps not, they're going in for this.
Yeah, they're actually going straight onto the dragon, and meanwhile the top lane, they're still trading off. Dominus comes down, and he is slowly grinding out Transcendent Blaze in return, but nothing's happening just as of yet. Now in the dragon fight, Shim comes in from the backside. It's very messy, with Caitlyn backing off, auto attacks come down, Kalu is locked up off to the side, lands the Q, double kill for Ezreal, looks to follow up onto Zyra as well, locked down with the grasping roots, jump over the wall from Kalu, more auto attacks come in, jumps into his turret. They're not looking for the dive. I feel like if Ezreal had tanked the turret, he might have been able to pick it up, but the dragon is a bigger objective right now.
Yeah, it's worth more gold and it's safer. They may as well go for that under the circumstances. So not complaining, and it does look like top lane kind of petered out, neither of them really achieving too much. Worth noting though, Transcendent Blades has a significantly shorter cooldown than Dominus, a good 30 seconds between them, and that gives Aurelia a window if she's able to keep her mana going and if Renekton is not allowed to recall.
Yeah, and Renekton, there's no real reason for him to back up, but as you said, there's that small window of opportunity where Aurelia can engage once again, but if he saves his slice and dice, in fact he just utilized it, but if he saves his slice and dice, there's no way Aurelia can keep up with him. But that's actually one of the things we were saying. Will the gap closer, slice and dice, be enough to keep Aurelia away? She hasn't built a phage though, so the answer's probably yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a yes on that front. The Sunfire Cape will give him a bit of an advantage, and also quite an early Trinity Force. Full pickup there by Ezreal with 2 kills helping him out tremendously. That makes him a very scary opponent for Caitlyn in this bottom lane. Getting that Sunfire Cape up is going to be pretty much the king thing in this top lane, because it's just persistent trading, and that is where Sunfire Cape shines. Both of them will benefit greatly, but in the end, it comes down to basically, I think, mechanically, in an all-in situation, to can Aurelia Blade Surge, like bait out Dominus and then Blade Surge out of the way of it and wait it out. If she can do that, she can win. If not, she's just going to stay in the situation where she is just getting a slowly increasing CS gap between them.
Yeah, either way, when we get to late game, Aurelia should outscale Renekton regardless, but the fact that Renekton's beating her at the moment by a good 30 CS and is sieging in the turret, yes, the item builds are very similar, but he's at least making sure that she doesn't hit that kind of critical mass of Aurelia, which is a good thing. In the bot lane, Shyvana, well, looked for the gank and just backed on off. And jungle farm is probably more important. And Orianna looking to take up this Wraith, but the insect, oh, the flashes! And he doesn't quite land it. He tried to do that thing where you wall jump and then flash and then insect, but nope.
A failure! He has failed to insect correctly there.
Insufficient Korean.
Insufficient Korean in his blood, although Korean's overrated, so you know.
That's true.
True. It's definitely true. Gambit got through, by the way. Ozone got knocked out. I don't know if you watched. But regardless, we have got Dominus in the top lane.
Yep, great use of Blade Surge, and he just backs off to his turret. One of the reasons why Aurelia is very difficult to gank. They're looking for the re-engagement though. He doesn't have Dragon's Rage, so I'd be surprised if they went for this, but since Dominus is still up, they are definitely going for Equilibrium Strike comes out. He's forced to back up because of turret aggro. I'm not convinced though that he was hanky enough. Meanwhile in the mid lane, Inksy is feeling the pinch of Shyvana. You just can't get Shyvana off you once he has Burnout and Red buff. Meanwhile, Lee Sin comes down to try and help out, but with Renekton off to the side, they might be able to cut him off. I'm not even sure they know he's there. Sonic Wave comes down. They are looking to cut him off, but Slice and Dice should be off cooldown. There we go. And Shyvana will kind of slowly chase after him.
Well, she can continue to try and chase him, and so as long as she prevents him from recalling, they have the advantage on the tower here. They've got very good wave clear, they've got pretty good poke under that tower, and I don't think Renekton's really going to be able to either clear this out safely or stay in.
Yeah, they've gone for the tower dive. Kalu's getting dropped very quickly. Irelia's actually just tanking the tower aggro, and Nice Dragon's Rage knocks them all back. And, I thought we had something coming at bot lane, but Kalu, it's been on top of his mechanics this game.
Yeah, very, very nicely done indeed. Kalu GG. I've got to say though, like I was saying, I don't think he can stay in here. He proceeded to do so, and it backfired quite badly. Renekton was just too low. They should have abandoned that tower and simply said, okay, what's our next play going to be?
Yeah, they're not reading the trading potential from themselves in comparison in group situations, at least in skirmishes. They're not reading it very well, so that will hurt them, but they're still ahead, at least by 1k gold. Dragon will be up in around 2 minutes, so that's another objective to fight over. And now looking at the team fights, they look pretty similar, honestly. Like, there's a very good AoE wombo combo from Bulgaria's finest, and then they have Irelia just to mess up the back lines. But there's something very similar from Kalu is OP, because they have good AoE, they also have Ari to maybe get up the back lines, and they have a meaty front line as well. So team fights are going to be very close.
It feels to me like Kalu OP has like a slightly more kind of sustained AoE damage going on there. Like, Ari's going to take a while to get all of her Spirit Rush procs out. She's going to throw out several Orbs of Deception. You know, whereas when you get the Shyvana, when you get the Descent of the Balls on you, that's going to be a huge amount of burst damage rather than being like a couple of spells in a row being casted. But anyway, top tower has fallen. Renekton finally getting enough of an advantage in that lane to push it down, but they did take that counterpart tower already, so nothing too huge there.
Yeah, and Shyvana heading down into the bot lane, been maxing out the burnout, and in fact gone for the Flame Breath second, which seems to be very common even for Shyvana top lanes now, so because of the extra flat damage and because it's also magic damage is one of the reasons. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Shyvana this game pick up Sork Boots, because if she goes tanky enough with maybe like a jungle item and then picks up something else like a Sunfire Cape and maybe a Spirit Visage, there's no real reason why she couldn't pick up Sork Boots as well. And Sork Boots actually, in terms of efficiency for the extra damage you get, is actually very high.
It's an interesting proposition with Shyvana, and you often see it if you see a solo lane Shyvana. Generally, I think people like to get defensive, almost like a pure tank build on Shyvana, because she does do quite a lot of damage just by being there. Kind of like Renekton, actually. But yeah, would I expect to see Sork Shoes on her this game? Probably she's going to itemize towards defense. She's probably not feeling so super confident. And the blue buff aggroed on the ward.
Yep, and blue buff. Oh, the burst damage comes down. The burst combo locks up the entire team of Kalu is OP. Ace in the hole comes across, and Caitlyn's not in the fight just yet, but Inksy drops regardless. Now Shadow is backing off. Endro can't chase after. Kalu is still there. Flashes out all around. Another flash from Renekton and the Arcane Shift. Huge Orianna ultimate lands onto 4. Can they clean up though? Shadino is so low, but they're looking for the follow-up. Is it going to be enough? Equilibrium Strike comes out. That's enough healing. And the command attack with the last bit of mana will actually give him more mana from the Fiend's Unholy Grail. That's a 2 for 3 overall, and very, very close.
Kalu okay, so that fight started off with a very kind of nice bit of damage coming in with the Shyvana jump in, with the Aurelia jump in, with the nice Stranglethorns on top of it, but they crucially lacked the Orianna component. They lacked follow-up damage. They lacked that shockwave to hold them in even longer. As a result, they kind of started to lose control of the fight. Renekton was running around doing a ton of damage, taking people down, but then you actually had an overcommitment against that Orianna shockwave, which was still up. You saw that 4-man shockwave, you saw that turnaround. If they'd hit less people, perhaps that wouldn't have been as amazing, but even so, I don't think Kalu OP should have chased as far as they did.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that Dragon is still up, and it looks like middle tower is going to go down, so I don't think anything has really changed in terms of gold, and we could see a complete rinse and repeat of that last engagement. Most of the cooldowns are back off. Stranglethorns will be up in a couple seconds, so will Shockwave. Dominance will still be off cooldown, it's probably one of the longer ultimates, and also Shim's Crescendo, but it's going to go down before Shyvana can even get there. Do they choose to go for the team fight? Looks like the answer is going to be no, and Bulgaria's finest lose out in terms of timing.
Yeah, they just didn't seem to get back in place as snappily. I do not remember if they were, farming out jungle camps or something there, but I can't think of a reason why they should have been so much slower to get there.
They pushed mid, and then Orianna took a while to recall, but then they started just coming back in, and I don't think they expected Kalu to go straight back onto Dragon. I mean, personally, I would see that as a very typical play. I guess they just didn't read it.
It's always easier from the spectator's perspective
of course.
to make those kinds of calls, but they had enough information available to them. That's the thing. Like, yes, it's easier to keep track of in our situation, but if you are in the situation where you've got that information available to you and you're playing at a high level of gameplay like this, it's kind of something you should be doing to keep track of as much of what's going on at once as possible. And by the way, I think Shyvana, they've been spotted out with this combo at bot.
Yeah, they have. They're still making a very strong push, and Renekton's recalling as a result. They might be gearing up for a fight. Shyvana, well, they have actually a very good wave clear, and they will be cleaning up very quickly. But the bot lane, the bottom tower, is very high HP. 22 minutes into the game, still going to be doing significant damage, but the zoning control, at least from the ball, should be enough just to kind of allow them to trunk it down. Like, their sieging team is very good with Caitlyn, and the control, and pretty good engage as well on top of that. So, in terms of locking them down under turret, there's a lot of displacement. Looking at Dragon's Rage, lockdown Crescendo. If he just managed to land an insect, it could be good. And Orianna, honestly, is probably the best person to have it on. Had Renekton been a little bit closer, he probably would have gone for it.
Yes, it's kind of now, will they, won't they, on the Shyvana ball combo there. They may want to go for it, but I'm not sure they want to. If they get that big wombo combo off, yes, it will do a ton of damage. Yes, it will crowd control a lot of people, but the risk is that they could overcommit, and then you'd have Renekton in the middle of the back line.
Yeah, it's the game is starting to buckle. We're looking at any point for it to come down to the breaking point. We've said this before, Spuddington. I think in the last game, in fact, this seems to be what these two teams like to do. It just gets to the boiling point, and then a team fight happens. And a team fight, it honestly does feel like it will erupt any second now. But it's everyone just trying to find the perfect engagement. Lee Sin wants to find himself a Q onto the right person, potentially insect them back. Apart from that, their initiation's fairly poor. Like, they have Crescendo from Flash Crescendo, but that's very difficult to land. On the flip side though, Dragon's Descent into the Bull, or the Bull's Descent as you so aptly named it before, could be what they're looking for. Maybe on the next engagement, here it is, Dragon's Descent comes out, and the Bull, in fact the Shockwave hasn't been used just yet, and now Renekton's in that back line, Shyvana gets chunked down, now the ultimate comes out, hits Kalu, that will be enough to lock him under turret. 1-for-1 trade in terms of the junglers, will they go for the engagement, and I'm not even sure who won in that fight. It looks like the slight advantage is to Kalu.
Indeed it is, but Irelia is staying in, it seems. I'm not sure if there's really much purpose to doing that. She has just gained a level. It does look to me like both teams are going to back out. Kalu OP though, they could be ceding their bottom tower in so doing. If too many of them recall to go and deal with those waves in other lanes, they will lose out here. They've left 3. Ezreal low on mana, as is Sona. Renekton very low on health. But there's not a lot of burst without that Shockwave, without that Dragon's Descent. They don't have the ability to just straight up nuke down Renekton. He would survive on a couple of hundred HP if they went all in on him.
They're looking to siege it. Renekton, if he decides to engage, actually the poke damage is very strong. Shadino still on the front. Command protect should be enough, and the minion wave, there we go, eventually sieging it down. And their siege composition is so exceptionally good that there was no way for Renekton even to connect to that back line.
Yeah, he was kind of lucky to get away with his life, taking a full combo and a lot of poke at one time. If he'd been able to avoid that, maybe the threat of him going in for the stun would have kept them away from that tower a little while longer. But Ari did have time to go to another lane, get some farm up, get a little bit of gold, and indeed it's worth taking stock, I think, at this point of just how every person on each team is kind of shaping up right now. Irelia 3-0-1, but with 50 less CS than Renekton is probably very equivalent to him. You have also got that Shyvana with high levels, but getting quite a bit of base damage off of that. However, the issue I'm seeing here is that their AD carry is really not doing brilliantly. You've got the Bloodthirst, you've got the Zeal, you've got the Pickaxe building into the Last Whisper. She's got a little bit of everything. She's doing a fair bit of damage, and she's got some lifesteal, but she's not a huge threat, and they need follow-up to that combo. You're seeing thus far, it's not been able to just straight up 100-0 anyone, and most of the time, it's not even catching Ezreal in it at all.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. If there's an angry Renekton there along with Lee Sin, then Caitlyn will probably never kill him. It will take, like, at least 20 seconds for Caitlyn to whittle down Renekton's armor. So that's never really going to happen, and that's a very big issue. One of the reasons she's shooting straight for Last Whisper. And Renekton it will take a long time to die, but he's not really fearing the damage from Orianna just yet, and probably Shyvana is going to be one of the biggest damage threats to him. Burst damage from AP casters. So in the mid lane, they're looking for the siege to happen. I still feel that if they get their combo off, like Dragon's Descent into the shockwave, and then or the AoE on top of it, and Irelia gets to her prize target of Ezreal, they could still win a team fight. So the overextension from Kalu OP could backfire, but they're going to go straight onto Dragon. I do think they're going to be able to stop them in time.
That was a nice true shot barrage, taking a decent chunk off everyone. They could go for that, but the charm comes out, so they're just going to back away from it. This does give them positioning to push that mid lane, and maybe to try and catch someone out as they go to cut Orianna off. But will they be able to catch Renekton? I don't think so. Doesn't look like they're even going to try. They've got a 5-man stack in mid. Now they really need to make use of it, or Ezreal's just going to get farmed for free in bot.
Bulgaria's finest are always like 2-3 seconds late to the party. This is the second time now I've seen Bulgaria's finest like 2 seconds away from the perfect initiate, where everyone was grouped up in front of that Baron pit, but they weren't quite there. Now we could see the initiate coming in from Kalu's OP. He's off to the side, Renekton on the front lines, ball on to Shyvana, but they're keeping themselves sparse, keeping themselves split up, not allowing that big ultimate to come out from Orianna, and in fact they just back on off.
Alright, so they do need to clear out that top wave. They do have a bottom wave building up. And that means that the strategy for Kalu OP here should be to try and push them down the mid. Prevent them from having an easy time going to farm that. They will hopefully, from their perspective, have a timing opportunity, however. Have Caitlyn clear away that bot lane, have the 4-man in mid hold that, and then as soon as Caitlyn is cleared, rotate Caitlyn back to mid, and someone else from this mid lane to that top. We'll see if they choose to do that, but it actually looks like they're feeling a little bit paranoid about the potential for a dive. I don't think they need to be as scared as that, though.
Yeah, Renekton's tanky, but if they do get into a dive, they're still going to be bottlenecked, so they can land all their AoE. The poke is probably stronger from Kalu's OP, and Caitlyn's not vamped up enough yet. And Orianna, they still have a lot of threats. So I don't think they could straight up tower dive and be like, we're going to be okay now, because they're probably not far ahead enough. It's a difficult question to answer, Spuddington, because it will come down to the execution of the dive. Shyvana's still in the top lane though, so it's a 4 versus 5. If they went all in, they might be able to win the fight before she gets there, I don't know.
It's an interesting one. Shyvana's quick to get across the map, and they will be able to take away this bottom tower, which was already taking a pummeling from the huge minion wave that hit it. So definitely Kalu OP coming out ahead here. They did have just that kind of wave control that nobody else seemed to have on the map, and it put them in a it put Bulgaria's finest in a very awkward position. Basically, they were forced into a lose-lose situation where they either rotated people and risked a dive, or they rotated or they didn't rotate people and they lost farm and hence towers. They also lost vision control in their own jungle, and you can see a lot of blue wards hanging around and not a single one that's red.
Shyvana once again out of the fight, but she's probably one of the only members who can back off and be there almost instantly. If they do land the grassing roots onto the right person, it will be very good, especially when they're trying to siege. If they land it onto, say, an Ezreal, probably not Ezreal, but if they get it onto Inksy, then they could immediately initiate with Dragon's Descent into, the classic bull. So it's all about landing the CC onto the right person. I think a lot of it's going to be down to supports to either land the Flash Crescendo or go for the grassing roots onto Zyra. So again, we're getting to that situation where they want to engage, but it's finding the right initiation. It might happen very shortly, though. Flame Breath comes out, doesn't choose to go for it. I feel like if she Dragon Descented right there, would have been probably pretty good.
It's a question, though, of how hard they want to commit, because if you Dragon's Descent at the max range with a ball on you, there's a high chance you're not going to get a lot of follow-up. Irelia can jump in, yes. Caitlyn can kind of kite around the back and do a bit of damage, yes. But it's going to be a good second before they're able to follow up. And by that time, the shockwave cooldown, the shockwave CC has run out. At which point you're essentially just fighting in a straight fight with a little bit of a health advantage, but less important cooldowns. Ezreal will... You can't rely on catching Ezreal in a shockwave unless he's already committed Arcane Shift.
Yeah, Shyvana does have the balls. So, nice in fact on Shadino at the moment. Just going to back off, pick up the blue buff, and probably return into the bot lane again. It feels like Kalu OP doesn't want to go for the engagement because they feel it could backfire under turret, and at the same time, Bulgaria's fighters don't want to go for the engagement because they're behind. So, as it is, the tower's losing like 200 HP per wave. So in about 5 minutes, Buddington, we might see the tower falling.
It's a very slow game, but it is one where having that blue buff on Ezreal is going to be a big advantage. That poke is adding up. You can see a lot of health bars being depleted not Kalu OP, that's Bulgaria's finest, but they're not far enough ahead that they can really punish people they catch with Ahri charms. So I actually do like their decision to just go for the blue buff on Ezreal, even though Ahri was right there and they could have donated it. However, the fact their waves are pushing so hard is giving them an edge.
Yeah, middle tower is now being, well, kind of pummeled by those minions, but it's not going to be able to take it down, but eventually it will start to mount up, but that will kind of peter out and even up again as the tower pushes it back. They are chunking down the tower. I would have said that if they're doing no damage to the tower, there's no reason for them to be there, but they are getting a couple auto attacks off at a time. This is the third True Shot Barrage that's come across in this siege by itself, and that has a 64-second cooldown without taking Mystic Shot into account. So we've been here for a good minute and a half at least, Puddington.
Yeah, he's casting a lot of Mystic Shots, which also decreases the cooldown, and it does look like they've finally been forced away. The poke was adding up, and the minion waves were also looking to get kind of scary. Zika being mauled by some angry wolves because of his Sunfire cape, but he's come out behind Shyvana here. She's a bit quick. Orianna is there too, but they need to prevent themselves getting in that situation again. They can't afford to be pressed up against the tower while the waves all build up and attack them.
Yeah, now they're moving on to Drake. Oh, this is ballsy, but they're pinging Baron. They're gonna go for it. Ahri has probably realized she's heading on up. She could... Well, is she gonna farm the minions? Is she gonna go to Baron? No, she's gonna farm the minion line. They're going for it. It's not being warded. This is very good, honestly, from Bulgaria's finds. A very good call, but as the True Shot Barrage comes across, they know where they are. They've taken some hits, down to about 40% in HP, but they go for the team fight now. They're probably going to lose it if Kalu OP can catch up. Inxi follows through. Orianna ultimate comes across, lands onto 2, but Zekra is there. He's just so tanky, absolute raid boss. Crescendo comes down, kills Zyra. Following up onto the rest of the team, Orianna just doesn't have the HP. They're so low. If they can connect the dots, in fact, Lee Sin connects his Q, follows it with Resonating Strike. Equilibrium Strike comes across. Dragon sent over the wall. Now jumps into the Baron Pit. Another Arcane Shift from Ezreal picks up the kill with Essence Flux. And 2 for 0 trade. Baron is still up if they choose to go for it, but looks like Kalu OP are quite happy with that result.
And you know what would have changed that whole situation around there? Cillium did not know how to attack Baron over the wall. You actually saw him dither around that corner area for a while. He wasn't able to auto-attack it over the wall, so he had to walk all the way around. That cost him a good 5 seconds of DPS on that Baron. They probably could have focused it down, at the least taken the Baron, even though they might then have lost the fight. But then they would have been able to maybe disengage with a couple of members left up. As it was, it didn't work out for them, and they basically just fed gold, fed time, and fed experience to their opponents.
Yeah, I agree. I think they probably could have taken Baron if they had Caitlyn wailing away at it. Like a 2-item AD carry at this stage is enough, honestly. So, yeah, I mean, Caitlyn can auto-attack it over the wall. So can, like, Tristana when she gets past 650. I'm not actually sure what the maximum range is that is, or rather the minimum range is needed to shoot over that wall, because Tristana vamps up to 703 at max level. But Caitlyn can definitely do it. I know Cogmore can with his Biocane Barrage active. But it's kind of interesting. Very interesting question.
I'm not actually sure if Ashe can. That's probably the sticking point.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's not for a lot of people, the position you have to stand to do the DPS is not the one you expect it to be. It's not actually like the corner which looks like it's curving in towards the Baron pit. You don't stand there. You stand at the point which is actually giving you the shortest line to Baron, which is kind of where that little purple light is on the right. It's about there. That is kind of your marker. And if you stand like right up close to that, you can usually do it. Don't know whether Ash can do it, but certainly it's something that I actually saved me once in a ranked game, having seen Reckless do it.
It's a good point actually, because Ash's range is 600, Caitlyn's is 650. So that's half a Teemo, if you want to put it in that sense. Tree Shot Barrage comes across, hits Caitlyn in the face, Zeka off to the top side, and huge damage comes in, but now the Dragon's Descent comes out. I'm not sure if the Shockwave came down, in fact it didn't. They're still aggressing onto the tower, they can still lock them up with a huge Orianna ultimate, but she's being chased back by Renekton. He's zoning away their major damage potential, 2 for 0 trade. Renekton's going huge, I thought he was just going to jump into their base, but he's backing off, and Renekton single-handedly won that team fight for them.
And this is why sometimes it seems a little bit odd that people say Renekton falls off. Like, he does fall off in terms of his single target dueling potential. The simple fact is that Dominus, in a full AoE fight, if he can get stuck in, let's do some maths here. Assume he's hitting 3 people for maybe half the duration. It's still doing thousands of magic damage. It's ridiculous how much damage Renekton puts out, especially if you add in that Sunfire Cape as well. He's less of a threat to your AD carry than a character like Irelia, but in an AoE where he's just putting out as much damage on as many people as possible, he actually really adds up, and you can't afford to ignore him even though he's incredibly beefy.
Yeah, and it's very tempting to start building AP on Renekton because the scaling is actually very good on his ultimate, and therefore making Lizard Wizard. It's pretty good. Like, over the full duration, if you land all of it, I think the scaling is over 2. And considering Nunu ultimate is 2.6, I think, or 2.5, then Renekton's ultimate is pretty comparable. But that's landing, the entire duration on it. And as a result, Lizard Wizard is not good.
That is also the case. It's also, less of an AP ratio than, say, Orianna, who has quite a low total AP ratio. Lizard Wizard may be funny, although maybe you could swing a Salt Shoes or something on him. Yeah. I don't know. He certainly has very high base damage on that ability. I really do actually want to do the maths, but I always embarrass myself when I do that on stream.
I can do it if you want.
You, mathematician. Like, just kind of take it as like a fight where Renekton gets into the middle of your team, so, fighting maybe 3 people, hitting with 10 seconds of Dominus.
Yeah, so that's 1,000 on, maybe say 3 people, I think that's reasonable, and then 10 seconds. So 10 seconds would be 1,000 damage, it would be 3,000 damage, taking in resistances. On the typical, probably like the front line and maybe a squishy. So Shyvana's probably going to be blocking about 60% of that, maybe 70%. Not going to have any resistances in there as well. So that's maybe 400 damage then. So it's about like, I think 1.5k from the ultimate in a typical team fight, and that's like at the low end. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy if you actually stop and do the maths. You must do the maths. It's terrible if you do not have the maths. But at the moment, it feels like, once again, Kalu OP have managed to engineer a situation where they are pushing up. However, they are waiting on the Baron buff this time, so they do have a little bit more of a time pressure this time.
One of the comments from chat, not sure if maths class or lol stream.
Well, if you know, and it's a terrible accent stream, I don't know about
That's
anything
true.
else.
I mean, most of our viewers will be from Eastern Europe and won't know what we're talking about, which is probably a good thing, so we're not berated. Maths! I mean, that is the universal language, Buddington, so no matter where you are in the universe, maths will always make sense.
I guess that is not necessarily true. You don't know if the universe continues indefinitely under the same natural laws, so you can't say it's universal.
I'm saying universal in the sense that if we came with an alien race and we started talking in like binary code or something,
yeah, but then it's not universal, is it? That's just, galactic.
Well, what happens outside of our galaxy?
Well, I don't know. And
well, that's funny.
You presume to, though, by saying it's universal, and I think that's very presumptuous of you.
Anyway, back onto League of Legends. So the Siege is coming in mid lane. Lancer Charm onto Kavara though, doesn't choose to go for the engagement, as we are just kind of dribbling on because it's gotten to the stage against Buddington, which we saw this at the bot lane, we're seeing it in the mid lane, and I think in about 2 Ezreal Ultimate's time, we might see an engagement happen. There's the second Ezreal Ultimate. Will it happen in the next minute?
Well, remember the Baron buff is timing out within the next, what, like 20, 30 seconds. That is going to give an opportunity, because most of the players now on Bulgaria's Finest have got either home guard or the ability to get home guard, and they also have got that big engage combo. If they can start an initiation, a messy long-term fight under their tower, then they can really abuse that home guard advantage and kind of make up for the gold deficit. But as it is, they're just slowly getting poked down. There's not a lot of focus poke. It's pretty much just the odd Ezreal Q, but he is landing them, and he's landing them more than Orianna is landing return.
And it is very slow, as the tower has taken a grand total of 50 hit points. Oh no, 100. And Ezreal is slightly chunking it down. They've actually chosen to back off and try and take some of the buffs, which makes sense in looking to Renekton to take up the red buff. And it has allowed at least Bulgaria's Finest to step out of their base. I wouldn't be surprised if we now see Kalu's OP try to collapse upon them, because they're out of their safe zone. I'm not entirely sure why they've just stepped out of their safe zone, considering they're being pushed up against their tower. I guess this is because they want a breath of fresh air, but this could be massive.
Well, there's big minion pressure. Look, that big wave in that top lane, that gives them the option to rotate there if they want to. But now they are indeed being collapsed upon. But their team comp works extremely well if they're able to get the drop on their opponents. This could get very ugly very fast.
Yeah, the all split, the Dragon's Ascent comes down, looking for the combo. He backed up, two of them are against the wall, but Renekton is chunking down the back line, and Ari just rips them apart. Double kill comes down, Sinium gets dropped by Renekton. Shadina is back off to the side. Call the Meek just walks right into that one, and now Transcendent Blaze comes backwards 4-0, and now Kalu OP just need to barrel down the mid lane.
Not enough peel in this team comp for Caitlyn to be left that exposed. And indeed, we're seeing the GG well played coming in. This could be a surrender vote. That is possible. We will be seeing a lot of damage on this tower. Certainly, I believe they will take it out and then proceed to the inhibitor. They could maybe finish off this. This will take them... yeah, I think they will actually get it off this. So regardless, that will be the... I don't know. Am I being presumptuous here?
I don't know. They've got 20 seconds. I think it will be closer than we think it will be. Or maybe I'm wrong. And Insect comes in. Shadino, can he go Faker? Can he go 1 versus 5? And Zyra comes in looking for the damage. But nope, Nexus falling. That's the most anticlimactic ending to a game I've seen in a very long time, Spuddington. But that will be Kalu GG. Or rather, Kalu is OP, that's not the player. But Kalu is GG. We'll be going 2-0 against Bulgaria's Finest. And yeah, that was the game.
2-0, they win the best of 3. They move on to the finals, which I believe are next, maybe. Actually, I have no idea what's going on with the schedule. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But regardless, we will try and get the next game up as fast as possible, and we will be moving into a break while we wait. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's all from me. If you've enjoyed my casting, you can follow me on facebook.com/SpuddingtonCasts and twitter.com/Spuddington. So, with that said, we'll see you after the break.